The room was filled with the most dangerous men in New York City, sipping crystal and discussing million-dollar hits, but all eyes were fixed on one small, trembling boy in the corner. They called him the Broken Prince, Leo Moretti, the autistic son of the most ruthless don on the East Coast, Dante Moretti. The socialites sneered, the rivals laughed, and his own stepmother-to-be pretended he didn't exist. They thought he was a mistake. They thought he was weak. But they were all wrong. One waitress, a woman with nothing to lose, saw what everyone else ignored. She didn't see a broken boy. She saw a partner. She put down her tray, walked across the marble floor, and asked him to dance. That single act didn't just silence the room. It started a war. And the Don? He was watching every move. The grand ballroom of the Plaza Hotel smelled of old money, expensive perfume, and fear. It was the annual charity gala for the Moretti Foundation, a front so transparent that even the FBI agents parked in the black van across Fifth Avenue knew it was a joke. Inside, the chandeliers dripped with crystals, casting a golden glow over the sharks in tuxedos. Elena Russo adjusted the high collar of her catering uniform. It scratched her neck, a constant reminder of her place in this world. She was 24, a Juilliard dropout with a mountain of debt, and a violin she hadn't played in 6 months because she was too busy working triple shifts just to keep the lights on in her Queens studio apartment. "Keep the champagne moving, Russo," the catering manager, Mr. Henderson, hissed into her ear. "And for God's sake, do not make eye contact with the VIPs. Especially Mr. Moretti. If you spill a drop near him, don't bother coming back for your paycheck." Elena nodded, gripping the silver tray tighter. She moved through the crowd like a ghost, weaving between men who could end her life with a phone call. She knew who Dante Moretti was. Everyone did. He was 32, the capo dei capi, a man whose face was carved from granite and whose eyes were cold enough to freeze hell over. He stood near the head table, nursing a scotch, radiating an aura of lethal power. Hanging onto his arm was Bianca Vane, as supermodel turned trophy fiancée. She was stunning, wearing a red Valentino gown that cost more than Elena's entire life earnings, but her smile didn't reach her eyes. She was busy charming a senator, laughing theatrically at his dull jokes, but Elena wasn't looking at Dante or Bianca. Her eyes were drawn to the shadow behind them. Sitting on a velvet bench, completely isolated from the revelry, was a boy. He couldn't have been more than 8 years old. He was dressed in a miniature tuxedo that looked uncomfortable. He was rocking back and forth slightly, his hands over his ears. His eyes squeezed shut against the sensory overload of the clinking glasses and the roaring jazz band. This was Leo Moretti. The secret. The rumor. Elena watched as a wealthy socialite in a silver dress brushed past the boy. Her sequined purse snagged on Leo's sleeve. Leo flinched and let out a small, startled yelp. The woman turned, a look of pure disgust twisting her face. "Watch it," she snapped at the child. "God, why do they bring him out? It's embarrassing." Bianca, standing 5 feet away, heard it. She didn't defend the boy. She didn't comfort him. She merely glanced over her shoulder, rolled her eyes, and took another sip of her champagne. Something inside Elena snapped. It wasn't a logical decision. It was a visceral reaction to the cruelty, to the isolation she saw in the boy's posture. She knew that rocking motion. She knew that need to block out the world. Her own younger brother had been on the spectrum, and she remembered how people used to look at him before he passed away. The jazz band shifted tempo, sliding into a slower, melodic waltz, Moon River. Elena stopped. She placed her tray of half-empty champagne flutes on a side table. "Russo, what are you doing?" Henderson whispered frantically from across the room. She ignored him. She smoothed her black skirt and walked directly toward the Broken Prince. The area around Leo was like a force field. Guests gave him a wide berth, treating his neurodivergence like a contagion. Elena stepped into that circle. She knelt down, not caring about the pristine marble floor, until she was eye level with the boy. "It's loud, isn't it?" she said softly. Leo didn't open his eyes, but his rocking slowed. He hummed a low note, a D flat. "I don't like the noise either," Elena whispered. "But do you hear the violins?" Focus on the violins, Leo. Leo's eyes fluttered open. They were the same shade of steel gray as his father's, but without the hardness. They were wide, terrified, and beautiful. The violins are safe, she promised. She stood up and extended her hand, palm open, non-threatening. She didn't grab him. She waited. May I have this dance, Leo? For 3 agonizing seconds, nothing happened. The nearby guests stopped talking. The silence spread like a ripple in a pond. Heads turned. Whispers broke out. The help is talking to the boy. Is she crazy? Then Leo reached out. He took her hand. Elena smiled, a genuine, warm smile that lit up her tired face. She guided him to the edge of the dance floor. She didn't force him into a traditional waltz frame. She simply held his hands, swaying gently to the rhythm, letting him find his own comfort in the movement. 1, 2, 3. She counted softly. 1, 2, 3. Leo mimicked her. He stopped rocking. He looked at her feet, then at her face. For the first time all night, the tension left his small shoulders. He wasn't the broken son of a monster anymore. He was just a little boy dancing. The entire ballroom had gone deadly silent. The jazz band faltered for a second, but kept playing. Elena didn't notice the room. She didn't see the senator's jaw drop. She didn't see Bianca's face turn a furious shade of red. And she didn't see Dante Moretti, the most dangerous man in New York, set his glass down on the table with a heavy thud, his eyes locking onto the waitress who had just done the impossible. The song ended. Leo let go of Elena's hand and, for a split second, a small, shy smile touched his lips. It was fleeting, but it was there. Thank you, Leo, Elena said, bowing formally to him as if he were a king. Leo awkwardly bowed back. The spell was broken by the sharp click of high heels approaching like gunfire. What do you think you are doing? Bianca Vane stood over them, looming like a vulture. Her hand was gripping Leo's shoulder hard, too hard. Leo flinched and shrank back, the light leaving his eyes instantly. I was just... Elena started backing away. You were humiliating this family, Bianca hissed, her voice low so only those nearby could hear. Touching him? With your dirty catering hands? Do you have any idea who we are? Elena stammered, looking around. The reality of what she had done crashed down on her. She saw the stairs, the judgment. Mr. Henderson materialized out of nowhere, his face pale and sweating. Ms. Vane, I am so sorry. This girl is new. She's incompetent. I'll have her removed immediately. Russo, get out. You're fired. Don't even clock out. Just go. Get her out of my sight, Bianca sneered, wiping her hand on her dress after letting go of Leo. And take the boy to the car. He's obviously overstimulated. He's ruining the mood. Leo looked at Elena, his eyes welling with tears. He reached a hand out toward her, a silent plea. Elena's heart broke. She wanted to fight, to scream that Bianca was the monster, not the boy, but she was a nobody. She was a waitress with $60 in her bank account. I'm sorry, Elena whispered to Leo. She turned to leave, her head down, shame burning her cheeks. Stop. The word wasn't shouted, but it carried across the ballroom with the force of a thunderclap. It was a baritone voice, rich and terrifyingly calm. The crowd parted. Dante Moretti walked through the gap. He moved with a predatory grace, his Brioni suit tailored perfectly to his broad frame. He didn't look at Bianca. He didn't look at Henderson. He looked straight at Elena. Mr. Moretti, Henderson squeaked. I was just handling the situation. This girl disturbed. Did I ask you to speak? Dante asked. He didn't even turn his head toward the manager. Henderson snapped his mouth shut. Dante stopped 2 feet from Elena. Up close, he was devastating. He smelled of expensive tobacco and rain. His eyes scanned her face, dissecting her. What is your name? He asked. Elena, she whispered. Helena Russo. Helena, he repeated, tasting the name. He turned his gaze to Leo. Leo. The boy looked up at his father. Usually, Leo looked at the floor around Dante. But tonight, Leo looked at him. Dance, Leo murmured softly. Music. It was the first word Leo had spoken in public in 3 years. A gasp went through the crowd. Bianca froze, her face draining of color. Dante's mask of indifference cracked for a millisecond, revealing a profound shock. He looked back at Elena. "You got him to speak." "He just needed to feel safe," Elena said, her voice trembling but defiant. She looked at Bianca. "He needed someone to not treat him like a burden." The silence stretched, thick with tension. Bianca bristled. "Dante, surely you aren't listening to this servant. She embarrassed us." Dante turned slowly to his fiancée. "She got my son to smile, Bianca. You've been living in my house for 2 years and haven't managed that once." Bianca recoiled as if slapped. Dante turned back to Henderson. "She is fired from your company, yes?" "Yes, Mr. Moretti." "Immediately." Henderson nodded vigorously. "Good," Dante said. He reached into his jacket pocket, pulled out a business card made of heavy black metal with gold embossing, and pressed it into Elena's hand. "Because she works for me now." "What?" Elena blinked, looking at the cold metal in her hand. "Be at this address tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. Don't be late." "I don't understand. To do what?" Elena asked. Dante looked at his son, who was watching Elena with a quiet fascination. "To do whatever it is you just did. Leo needs a tutor, a companion, someone who doesn't look at him like he's broken." Dante stepped closer to her, invading her personal space. His voice dropped to a low rumble that sent shivers down her spine. "But be warned, Elena Russo, my world is not a ballroom. Once you step inside, there is no walking away. Are you brave enough?" Elena looked at the card. Then she looked at Leo, who offered her a tiny, crooked wave. She looked up at the Mafia Don. "I'll be there." The address on the card led to a sprawling estate in Saddle River, New Jersey, hidden behind 20-foot iron gates and a perimeter of dense forest. It looked less like a home and more like a fortress. Elena arrived at 8:55 a.m. in her rusted Honda Civic, which looked comically out of place next to the fleet of black Cadillac Escalades and a silver Aston Martin parked in the circular driveway. 2 guards, armed with assault rifles, stopped her at the gate. They checked her ID, searched her car, and patted her down before waving her through. By the time she reached the massive mahogany double doors, her heart was hammering against her ribs. "What have I done?" she thought. "I'm a violin teacher, not a mobster's nanny." The door was opened by an older woman with a severe bun and a kind face, Mrs. Rossi, the housekeeper. "You must be the girl," Mrs. Rossi said, ushering her in. "The one who made the boss shut up his fiancée. The kitchen staff is already placing bets on how long you'll last. The record is 3 days. "That's encouraging," Elena muttered, stepping into a foyer that was bigger than her entire apartment building. It was decorated in minimalist Italian style, cold marble, abstract art, and very few personal touches. It felt sterile, lonely. "Mr. Moretti is in his study, 2nd floor, last door on the left. Don't knock. Just go in." Elena ascended the floating staircase. The house was quiet. Too quiet. It felt like a mausoleum. She reached the heavy oak door at the end of the hall and pushed it open. Dante was standing by the window, looking out at the grounds. He wasn't wearing a tuxedo today. He wore a black dress shirt with the sleeves rolled up, revealing tattoos that curled around his forearms. Symbols she didn't recognize, mixed with jagged scars. "You're on time," he said without turning around. "I need the job," Elena replied honestly, "and I wanted to check on Leo." Dante turned. The morning light caught the sharp angles of his face. He looked tired. "Leo is in the West Wing. It's his sanctuary. He doesn't let anyone in there except Mrs. Rossi, not even me." "Why not you?" Elena asked, emboldened by the strangeness of the situation. Dante walked to his desk and sat down, motioning for her to sit. "Because I am loud. I bring chaos. Leo requires order, silence." He pushed a contract across the desk. "This is a non-disclosure agreement. It states that what you see in this house, what you hear, who visits, it never leaves these walls. If you talk to the press, the police, or a friend, the consequences will be severe. Elena read the document. The salary figure made her eyes widen. It was more money in a month than she made in 2 years. It would pay off her debt. It would save her family's home in Ohio. "I sign this, and I'm yours?" she asked. "You sign that, and you belong to the family," Dante corrected. "Your job is solely Leo. You are to homeschool him, engage him, and protect him." "Bianca." Dante paused, his jaw tightening. "Bianca is to have no authority over you. You answer only to me." Elena signed. Her hand shook slightly. "Good," Dante said, taking the paper back. "Now go to the West Wing. See if he lets you in." Elena walked down the long corridors to the West Wing. The temperature seemed to drop as she approached. The door to Leo's room was closed. She didn't knock. Instead, she sat on the floor outside the door. She had brought her violin case. She opened it, took out her instrument, a battered but beautiful antique, and began to play. She didn't play a complex concerto. She played a simple, repetitive folk song. A lullaby. 10 minutes passed. Nothing. 20 minutes. Her arm was getting tired. Then the door creaked open. Leo stood there in his pajamas, holding a stuffed tiger. He looked at her, then at the violin. "Is that a Stradivarius?" he asked. His voice was raspy from disuse. Elena smiled, lowering the bow. "No, it's a Guarneri copy, but it has a good soul. Do you want to touch it?" Leo hesitated. He looked down the hall, checking for Bianca or his father. Seeing the coast was clear, he stepped out. He reached out and touched the wood of the violin. "It vibrates," he whispered. "It's singing," Elena corrected. "Can I show you my room?" Leo asked. Elena's heart soared. "I would be honored." She followed him inside. The room was incredible. It wasn't a child's bedroom, it was a laboratory. There were maps on the walls, intricate Lego structures of famous bridges, and a telescope pointing out the window. But in the center of the room, there was something disturbing. A painting. It was crude, done by a child, but the subject was clear. It showed a black stick figure with red eyes standing over a smaller stick figure. "Who is that?" Elena asked gently, pointing to the dark figure. Leo froze. He looked at the door, terrified. "The bad man," he whispered. "He talks to Bianca." Elena frowned. "Bianca has a friend." "Not a friend." Leo shook his head violently. "The bad man wants Daddy's chair." Elena felt a chill run down her spine. Daddy's chair. The throne. The head of the Mafia family. Before she could ask more, the door slammed open. Bianca stood there, wearing a silk robe, looking like she hadn't slept. Her eyes were manic. "What are you doing in here?" she screeched. "I told the guards not to let you up." Leo scrambled under his bed, shaking. Elena stood up, placing herself between the woman and the boy. "Mr. Moretti hired me. I have a contract." Bianca laughed, a harsh, brittle sound. She stepped close to Elena, smelling of stale vodka. "Contracts can be burned, honey, and accidents happen all the time in houses this big. You think you're special because you got the retard to dance? You're just a distraction, and I get rid of distractions." Elena didn't back down. She gripped her violin bow like a weapon. "I answered to Dante, not you." Bianca's eyes narrowed into slits. "We'll see about that. Watch your back, waitress. The Genovese family is making moves, and when the bullets start flying, the help are always the first to die." She spun on her heel and stormed out. Elena looked back at the bed. "Leo, it's okay. She's gone." Leo crawled out. He looked at Elena with a seriousness that belonged to an adult. "You have to tell Daddy," he whispered. "Bianca left the gate open." "What gate, Leo?" "The back gate," Leo said, "for the bad man." Elena ran to the window. The west wing overlooked the rear gardens, bordering the dense forest. Down below, near the servants' entrance, the iron gate was slightly ajar. And moving through the trees, camouflaged in the shadows, were 5 men in tactical gear. They weren't security. They were assassins. Elena didn't think. Instinct took over. A primal, terrifying need to protect the child standing beside her. "Leo, listen to me," she whispered, dropping to her knees and grabbing his shoulders. Her voice was steady, masking the terror pounding in her chest. "We are going to play a game. It's called invisible. You have to be as quiet as a mouse. Can you do that for me?" Leo's eyes were wide, reflecting the fear he sensed in her, but he nodded. "Invisible," he whispered. "Good." Elena grabbed his hand and the violin case. She didn't head for the main door. That led to the hallway where the assassins would surely be heading to cut off the escape route. She dragged Leo toward the ensuite bathroom. Inside, she locked the door and scanned the room. It was a dead end. No, wait. The laundry chute. It was old-fashioned, built into the wall. It was small, tight, but Leo would fit. "Leo, you have to slide down," she instructed, popping the hatch. "It goes to the basement laundry room. Hide behind the big machines. Don't come out until Daddy calls you. Only Daddy." "What about you?" Leo asked, his voice trembling. "I'm right behind you," she lied. She knew she couldn't fit. She had to stay behind to lock the chute, so they couldn't follow him immediately. Leo hesitated, then slid into the darkness. She heard the soft whoosh of fabric and a distant thud. He was safe for now. Elena slammed the chute door shut and locked it. She grabbed a heavy marble soap dispenser from the counter, a pathetic weapon against guns, but it was all she had. She retreated into the bedroom, overturned a heavy oak table to create a barricade, and waited. Downstairs, the silence of the house shattered. The sound of automatic gunfire erupted, loud, jarring cracks that echoed through the ventilation. Screams followed, the thud of bodies hitting the floor. Elena pressed her back against the wall, eyes squeezed shut, praying. Click! The handle of the bedroom door turned. It was locked. A heavy boot kicked the door. Wood splintered. Another kick, and the door flew open. Two men in black tactical gear stormed in, guns raised. They swept the room with professional efficiency. "Clear the closet," one shouted. "Boy isn't here," the other growled, spotting Elena behind the overturned table. He marched over, grabbed her by the hair, and hauled her to her feet. "Where is the kid?" Elena screamed in pain but spat in his face. "Gone, you missed him." The man backhanded her across the face. The world spun. She tasted copper. "Tell us, or I put a bullet in your knee." "I don't know," she cried out. The assassin raised his pistol, aiming at her leg. Bang! The shot was deafening, but Elena felt no pain. The assassin in front of her stiffened, a look of confusion crossing his eyes beneath the mask. He crumbled to the floor, a hole in the back of his head. Standing in the doorway, framed by the smoke and chaos, was Dante Moretti. He looked like a demon rising from the underworld. His white shirt was splattered with blood, none of it his own. In his hand was a smoking silver desert eagle. His face was a mask of pure, unadulterated rage. The second assassin turned to fire, but Dante was faster. 2 shots to the chest. The man dropped. Dante stepped over the bodies, his eyes wild, scanning the room. He didn't look at the dead men. He looked at Elena. "Where is my son?" His voice was a guttural roar. "Basement!" Elena gasped, clutching her bruising cheek. "Laundry chute! I sent him down!" The tension in Dante's shoulders snapped. He rushed to her, grabbing her face with his free hand, his thumb wiping away a trickle of blood from her lip. His touch was surprisingly gentle, a stark contrast to the violence he had just dispensed. "You stayed?" he asked, disbelief coloring his tone. "You sent him to safety and you stayed in the trap?" "I couldn't fit," she whispered, trembling now that the adrenaline was fading. "I had to lock it behind him." Dante stared at her for a second, a look of profound realization in his eyes. In his world, people sold each other out for $1. Nobody sacrificed themselves. Nobody except, apparently, the violin teacher. "Stay close to me," he commanded, pulling her to his side. "Do not let go of my jacket." They moved through the hallway. It was a war zone. Moretti's security team had neutralized the threat, but bodies littered the expensive carpets. They reached the basement. Dante called out, "Leo! It's Papa!" A small voice whimpered from behind the industrial dryer. Leo crawled out, dusty and terrified. He saw Dante and actually ran, into his father's arms. Dante dropped his gun and caught the boy, burying his face in Leo's neck. Elena watched, tears streaming down her face, leaning against the cold concrete wall for support. Minutes later, the head of security, a massive man named Marco, came running down. "Boss, the perimeter is secure, 5 hostiles down, but we found something." "What?" Dante asked, standing up. Leo still clinging to his leg. "The back gate," Marco said grimly. "The electronic lock wasn't forced. The code was entered from the keypad." Dante's eyes darkened. "Who has the code?" "Only family, boss. You, me, and Ms. Vane." Just then, Bianca came running down the stairs, her hair perfectly disheveled, crying theatrically. "Dante! Oh my God! I heard shooting! I was hiding in the pool house! Is Leo okay?" She rushed to hug Dante, but he stepped back. Her arms fell to her sides. "The pool house?" Dante asked, his voice dangerously quiet. "That's near the back gate, Bianca." Bianca froze. Her eyes darted to Elena, then back to Dante. "I went for a swim. I saw men I hid." "Dante, you can't think." She pointed a manicured finger at Elena. "She did it. The new girl. She probably signaled them." "She was in the line of fire protecting my son while you were hiding," Dante snarled. "Marco, take Ms. Vane to the holding room. We will discuss her swimming habits later." "No, Dante, you can't do this!" Bianca screamed as 2 guards dragged her away. Dante turned to Elena. She was swaying on her feet, the shock finally taking its toll. "Elena?" he said. The room went black as she collapsed. Dante caught her before she hit the floor. Elena woke up to the smell of burning wood and antiseptic. She wasn't in the fortress anymore. She was in a bed with high thread count sheets, looking up at a rustic wooden ceiling. She tried to sit up but groaned. Her head throbbed, and her cheek felt stiff. "Easy," a deep voice said. Dante was sitting in a leather armchair by the fire. He held a glass of whiskey, staring into the flames. He looked exhausted, the weight of his empire pressing down on him. "Where are we?" Elena croaked. "Upstate," Dante said. "My private cabin in the Adirondacks. Nobody knows about this place. Not even Marco, just me." "And Leo?" "Asleep in the loft. He asked about you 4 times. Dante stood up and walked to the bed. He sat on the edge, too close for polite company, but Elena didn't pull away. He handed her a glass of water. "You have a concussion. And a nasty bruise on your face." "I've had worse," she murmured, drinking the water greedily. "I doubt that," Dante said. He looked at her with an intensity that made her breath hitch. "You saved his life, Elena. The men who came in, they were sent by Salvatore Genovese. He's my rival. He didn't want to kidnap Leo. He wanted to kill him to break me." Elena gasped. "Kill a child?" "To men like Salvatore, Leo is just a pawn, a weakness." Dante's hand clenched into a fist. "I have spent my life building walls to keep monsters out. I never thought the monster would be sleeping in my own bed." "Bianca?" Dante nodded slowly. "We checked the security logs." She entered the code. "She's been feeding information to Genovese for months. She thought if Leo was gone, she would be the only thing that mattered to me. She wanted to be the queen so badly she burned down the kingdom." "What will you do to her?" Elena asked, fearing the answer. "She is being held," Dante said vaguely. "But she is not my priority right now. My priority is figuring out how to fix this." He reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind Elena's ear. His fingers lingered on her jawline. The air in the room crackled with electricity. "Why did you do it?" he asked softly. "You could have run. You owed us nothing. You've been with us for 24 hours. "He's a little boy, Dante," Elena said, looking into his steel-gray eyes. "And he's not broken. He's special. People like Bianca, they don't deserve him." "And people like me?" Dante asked, his voice vulnerable for the first time. "Do I deserve him? A father who brings assassins to the doorstep?" "You came for him," Elena said firmly. "You walked through fire for him. That's what a father does." Dante leaned in. His face was inches from hers. She could feel the heat radiating from him. He looked at her lips, then her eyes, searching for permission. "I have never met a woman like you, Elena Russo," he whispered. "You are dangerous." "Me? I'm a violin teacher." "You made me care," he said. "That is the most dangerous thing of all." He kissed her. It wasn't rough or demanding. It was desperate and soulful. It tasted of whiskey and salvation. Elena melted into him, her hands finding their way to his hair. For a moment, there was no mafia, no guns, no danger. Just a man and a woman in a cabin in the woods. But the moment was broken by a soft creak from the loft. Dante pulled away instantly, his eyes shifting to the stairs. Leo was standing there, holding his tiger. "I had a nightmare," Leo said. Dante's face softened instantly. "Come here, Piccolo." Leo climbed onto the bed, settling between Dante and Elena. He looked at Elena's bruised face and touched it gently. "Ouch?" "Just a little ouch," Elena smiled. "Daddy fix it?" Leo asked. Dante looked at Elena, a ghost of a smile playing on his lips. "I'm trying, Leo, I'm trying." For the next 3 days they lived in a bubble. Elena cooked simple meals. Dante chopped wood, shedding the suit for flannel, looking like a rugged mountain man. Elena played the violin for them in the evenings. Leo thrived. Away from the noise of the city and the judgment of the staff, he began to speak more. He laughed. He showed Dante his drawings. But the bubble had to burst. On the 4th evening, Dante's satellite phone rang. He answered it on the porch. Elena watched through the window as his posture shifted from father to Don, his shoulders squared, his jaw set. He came back inside, the cold air following him. "We have to go back," he said. "Is it over?" Elena asked. "No," Dante said, checking his gun. "Salvatore knows Bianca failed. He's proposed a peace summit at a warehouse in the Bronx. He claims he wants to apologize." "It's a trap," Elena said immediately. "Of course it's a trap," Dante replied calmly. "But it's also an opportunity. If I don't go, I look weak. If I look weak, other families attack. I have to end this tonight." "I'm coming with you," Elena said. "Absolutely not. You stay here with Leo." "No," Elena stood up. "Leo stays with Marco's best men. I'm coming with you. Bianca knows me. She hates me. If she's there, I can distract her. I can be your eyes." Dante grabbed her shoulders. "I cannot lose you, Elena." "You won't," she said fiercely, "but you need someone watching your back who isn't on the payroll, someone they won't suspect." Dante stared at her, warring with his protective instincts. Finally, he nodded once. "Put on a coat. We leave in 10 minutes. The warehouse in the Bronx was a rusted skeleton of industry, looming against the gray night sky. 6 black SUVs idled outside. Inside, the air smelled of oil and tension. Salvatore Genovese sat at a folding table in the center of the vast, empty space. He was a fat, sweating man with a smile that showed too many teeth. Behind him stood 10 armed men. Dante walked in with only 4 men, plus Elena. She was dressed in black, staying in the shadows near the entrance, trying to make herself small. "Dante!" Salvatore boomed, spreading his arms. "So good of you to come." "A terrible misunderstanding, that business at your house. Rogue agents. Terrible." "Cut the crap, Sal," Dante said, stopping 10 feet away. "You paid my fiancé to open the gate. You tried to kill my son." Salvatore's smile vanished. "Your son is a liability, Dante. A defective heir makes us all look weak. I was doing you a favor." Dante's hand hovered near his holster. "You speak of him again, and I will cut out your tongue." "And who is this?" Salvatore gestured to the shadows. "The nanny. You bring your mistress to a sit-down? You really are losing your touch." From the shadows behind Salvatore, a figure emerged. It was Bianca. She looked disheveled, her makeup smeared, but her eyes were manic. She had clearly defected fully to Genovese to save her own skin. "She's not a mistress," Bianca spat. "She's a witch. She brainwashed him, Sal. She's the reason Dante didn't sign the territory deal." Elena stepped forward into the light. Her heart was hammering, but she kept her voice clear. "I didn't brainwash anyone. I just showed him what loyalty looks like. Something you wouldn't understand, Bianca." Bianca shrieked and lunged forward, pulling a small pistol from her waistband. "No!" Dante roared. Chaos erupted. Bianca fired wildly. Dante tackled Elena to the ground, shielding her body with his. The bullet pinged off a metal pillar. The warehouse exploded into gunfire. Dante's men engaged Salvatore's crew. It was deafening, a cacophony of violence. Dante rolled, pulling his Desert Eagle. He fired 3 precise shots. 3 of Salvatore's men went down. "Stay down!" Dante yelled to Elena. He sprang up, moving toward Salvatore like a wraith. Salvatore overturned the table for cover. Bianca was scrambling away, trying to reach the exit. Elena saw something Dante couldn't. High up on the catwalk, a sniper was taking aim at Dante's exposed back. "Dante, above you!" she screamed. She did something reckless. She grabbed a metal pipe from the floor and threw it with all her might at a stack of oil drums near the catwalk. The clang was loud enough to startle the sniper. His shot went wide, missing Dante by inches. Dante spun around, saw the sniper, and fired once. The sniper fell from the catwalk, crashing onto the concrete. Dante turned back to Salvatore, who was now alone, his men dead or incapacitated. Dante walked up to the fat man, kicked the table aside, and pressed the gun to Salvatore's forehead. "For my son," Dante whispered. Bang! The silence that followed was heavy. Dante turned. He looked for Bianca, but she was gone. She had slipped out in the chaos. "Let her run," Dante said, seeing Elena looking at the door. "She has nowhere to go. Without Salvatore, she is nothing. The streets will eat her alive." He walked over to Elena, holstering his gun. He checked her for injuries, his hands shaking slightly. "You saved my life," he said, sounding stunned. "You saved mine first," she replied. Dante looked around at the carnage, then back at her. "This life, it is ugly, Elena. It is blood and death. Are you sure you want to be near it?" Elena reached out and took his hand, her fingers interlacing with his blood-stained ones. "I'm not afraid of the dark, Dante, as long as I'm dancing with you." Dante pulled her into a crushing hug, burying his face in her hair. "Then let's go home. Leo is waiting." 6 months later, the iron gates of the Moretti estate in Saddle River were usually kept shut, a physical barrier between the dangerous world of organized crime and the sanctuary within. But today, under the warm, golden haze of a late spring afternoon, they stood slightly ajar. It was a subtle change, one that no one outside would notice, but for those who lived behind the walls, it meant everything. It meant that the fear had finally lifted. The estate itself had transformed. The cold, imposing fortress that Elena had first arrived at, a place of gray stone, sharp angles and silence, was now alive with color. The manicured, sterile hedges had been softened by beds of wild lavender and hydrangeas that swayed in the breeze. A bright red swing set, starkly out of place against the Italian marble architecture, yet perfectly at home in a house that now knew laughter, stood proudly on the south lawn. It was a Tuesday, but the air felt like a holiday. The occasion was momentous, not for the criminal underworld, but for a father and his son. Today, Leo Moretti turned 9 years old. 6 months ago, a birthday for Leo would have been a somber affair. A quiet dinner in a silent room, perhaps a polite handshake from a distant father, and the crushing weight of isolation. Today, the backyard smelled of charcoal smoke, grilled peppers, and sweet Italian sausage. Mrs. Rossi, the housekeeper who had once guarded the door like a Cerberus, was currently wearing a kiss-the-cook apron, laughing as she swatted Marco's hand away from a tray of bruschetta. Marco and the security team, men who usually stood like statues with earpieces and assault rifles, had shed their tactical gear. They were in t-shirts and jeans, engaged in a competitive, rowdy game of soccer on the far lawn. Their holsters were gone, locked away in the armory. For a few hours, they weren't soldiers in a Mafia war. They were just uncles playing at a picnic. Elena sat on a large, checkered blanket spread out in the shade of an ancient oak tree, watching the scene with a sense of wonder that hadn't quite faded. She wore a simple white sundress, her hair loose around her shoulders. On her left ring finger, catching the sunlight every time she moved her hand, sat a vintage diamond ring. It was an heirloom, heavy with history, Dante's grandmother's ring. They hadn't set a date yet. agreeing to wait until the dust from the Genovese takeover had fully settled, but the title was already hers. To the staff, to the guards, and to the world, she was the lady of the house. But to the man sitting next to her, she was simply his piece. Dante Moretti leaned back on his elbows, watching the soccer game. He looked different than the man she had met in the ballroom of the Plaza Hotel. The sharp, predatory edge was still there. He would always be the capo, the lion, but the deep, exhausted lines that used to bracket his eyes had smoothed out. He wore a linen shirt with the sleeves rolled up, revealing the tattoos on his forearms, and for the first time in years, he wasn't checking his phone every 30 seconds. "He's fast," Dante murmured, nodding toward the field. Elena followed his gaze. Leo was running. He wasn't hiding in the corner, rocking back and forth. He was chasing the soccer ball, his face flushed with exertion, screaming for Marco to pass it to him. "He's happy," Elena corrected softly. "He's both," Dante said. He turned to look at her, his gray eyes softening. "Because of you." "We did this together," she reminded him, resting her hand on his arm. "You created the safety. I just provided the soundtrack." Dante covered her hand with his own. His grip was warm and solid. "Speaking of safety, I received a call from my contact at the NYPD this morning." Elena stiffened slightly. The mention of police usually meant trouble. "Is everything okay?" "It's about Bianca," Dante said. The name hung in the air for a moment, a ghost of the past violence. Elena took a breath. "Did they catch her?" "In a manner of speaking," Dante replied, a dark amusement coloring his tone. "She wasn't arrested. She was found. She's currently working as a hostess at a dive bar in Jersey City, a place where the floor is sticky and the tips are dollar bills." Elena blinked, trying to picture the glamorous, cruel supermodel wiping down tables in a roadside dive. "She's working?" "She tried to sell her story," Dante continued, picking a blade of grass and twisting it between his fingers. "She went to the tabloids, tried to tell them that the great Dante Moretti was being controlled by a witch of a nanny. She tried to tell them about the shooting, about Genovese." "And?" "And nobody bought it," Dante said with a shrug. "Without the Genovese backing, she has no credibility. The papers thought she was having a mental breakdown. They blacklisted her. She has no money, no connections, and no audience. She is living the life she used to mock." "Karma," Elena whispered. It wasn't said with malice, but with a quiet sense of justice. Bianca had tried to destroy a child because he was inconvenient. Now, she was the one the world found inconvenient. Poetic justice. Dante agreed. He sat up, dusting off his hands. But enough about the past. Today is about the future. "Hey, Papa, Elena." Leo came sprinting over, breathless and sweating, holding a large, rectangular box wrapped in blue paper. He collapsed onto the blanket between them, his energy infectious. "Marco said I could open the big one now," Leo announced, his voice loud and confident. The raspy whisper of the boy who hid in laundry chutes was gone, replaced by the boisterous tones of a 9-year-old. "Well, if Marco says so," Dante laughed, ruffling his son's hair. "Go ahead, Piccolo." Leo tore into the paper with abandon. Cardboard ripped. Tissue paper flew, and he gasped as he revealed the contents. It was a high-grade, professional telescope, a Celestron with computerized tracking. "Whoa," Leo breathed. "Is this the one that can see the rings?" "The rings of Saturn, the craters of the moon, and the nebula of Orion," Dante confirmed. "We can set it up on the balcony tonight." "Thank you, Papa." Leo threw his arms around Dante's neck. Dante closed his eyes, holding his son tight, a look of pure contentment on his face. Leo pulled back and looked at Elena. "Did you get me a present too, Elena?" "I did," Elena smiled. "But my present is for you and Papa, and it's not in a box." Dante raised an eyebrow. "Oh? Am I included in this?" "You are the financier, so yes," Elena teased. Dante reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet jewelry box. "That reminds me, I have something for you too, before we get to your gift." Elena's heart skipped a beat. "Dante, you already gave me the ring." "This isn't jewelry," he said softly. He handed her the box. Elena opened it. Inside, resting on the black velvet, was a single silver key. It was old-fashioned, heavy, and polished to a shine. "What is this for?" she asked, looking up at him. "Do you remember the music school in Queens?" Dante asked. "The one where you used to teach? You told me once that the owner was selling the building to a developer, that it was going to be turned into condos." Elena nodded, a pang of sadness hitting her. "Yes, Mr. Henderson fired me, but I heard the school closed down last month. All those kids, they have nowhere to go." "They do now," Dante said. "I bought the building, Elena. I bought the land, the instruments, everything." Elena stared at him, her mouth falling open. "You bought the school?" "I put it in your name," Dante said, his voice serious. "It's yours. You can reopen it. You can hire whoever you want. You can teach Leo there, and any other child who needs patience. Any child who needs to learn that they aren't broken, just different." Tears welled up in Elena's eyes, spilling over before she could stop them. "Dante, that's a fortune." "It's an investment," he corrected, wiping a tear from her cheek with his thumb. "An investment in the only thing that matters." "You gave my son his voice back, Elena. I can never repay that. But I can give you a place to help others find theirs." "I don't know what to say," she choked out. "Don't say anything," Dante whispered, leaning in to kiss her forehead. "Just play." "Play?" "For the birthday boy," Dante gestured to the violin case resting against the tree trunk. "The sun is setting. The party needs music." Elena wiped her eyes and nodded. She stood up. The grass cooled beneath her bare feet. The sun was dipping below the tree line, painting the sky in hues of violet and burnt orange. The fireflies were just beginning to blink in the twilight, tiny sparks of magic in the gathering dusk. She walked to the case, unlatched it, and lifted out the violin. It was the same battered instrument she had brought to the Plaza Hotel that fateful night, the one that had a good soul. She tucked it under her chin and raised the bow. The chatter from the soccer game died down. Mrs. Rossi stopped clanging the tongs. Marco and the guards stood still. Elena began to play. The notes drifted through the garden, sweet and mournful, yet full of hope. She didn't play a complex concerto or a fast-paced jig. She played Moon River. The melody rose and fell like a gentle tide, filling the silence of the estate with a warmth that stone walls and iron gates could never provide. Two drifters, off to see the world. Leo, who had been inspecting his telescope, froze. He recognized the song. It was their song. He stood up, abandoning his gift. He walked over to his father, who was still sitting on the blanket, watching Elena with a look of adoration that burned brighter than the sunset. "Papa," Leo said, extending his hand. "Up." Dante looked at the small hand. He smiled, a genuine, unguarded smile that reached his eyes. "Up?" "Dance," Leo commanded. Dante laughed, a rich baritone sound that rumbled in his chest. He took his son's hand and hoisted himself up. Leo didn't stop there. He walked over to Elena, who was still playing, and grabbed the hem of her dress. "Circle," Leo said. Elena lowered the bow for a second, laughing. "A circle?" "A circle," Dante confirmed, stepping up beside her. He took her hand, and with his other hand he held Leo's. Elena tucked the violin against her shoulder again and began to play a one-handed pizzicato variation, plucking the strings while they moved. And there, on the manicured lawn of a house built on blood and money, a miracle occurred. The Mafia don, the struggling violinist, and the boy who saw the world in patterns moved together. They spun in a clumsy, beautiful circle, swaying to the rhythm of a future that finally felt safe. Dante looked at Elena over Leo's head. His eyes promised a lifetime of protection, of loyalty, and of love. He squeezed her hand. Elena squeezed back. She looked down at Leo, who was humming along to the music, his eyes closed, a smile of pure bliss on his face. The broken prince wasn't broken anymore. The lion had been tamed. And the invisible girl had finally been seen. As the music swelled and the first stars appeared in the night sky, Elena knew one thing for certain. They were an odd family. A dangerous family, perhaps, But as they danced under the moonlight, they were, finally, a happy one. And that is the story of how a single act of kindness brought a mafia empire to its knees and built something beautiful from the ashes. It proves that sometimes the strongest person in the room isn't the one with the gun, but the one with the courage to love what others ignore. Elena saw a boy when everyone else saw a mistake, and in doing so, she saved them all. If this story touched your heart, or if you cheered when you found out Bianca ended up exactly where she belonged, please hit that like button. It really helps the channel grow and lets me know you want more stories like this. What did you think of Dante's transformation? Do you think people like him can truly change? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe and ring the notification bell so you never miss a new story. We have a crazy revenge drama coming up next week about a billionaire who goes undercover at his own high school reunion. You won't want to miss it. Thanks for watching.